Hello everyone. Lords of the Fallen is a very strange game. It did a lot of things right and a lot of things wrong. So let's talk about them in details. Positive things. The very first thing that comes in my mind about the positive things about this game is its visual. I am not just talking about oh look how detailed and realistic graphics are. I am talking about visual and art choices. This game has many interesting looking and memorable art. Personally my favorite ones were the arena of the budget Shadows of Yarnam, this giant magma hand, Mother's Realm and this location. People who drew all Umbra locations in this game are amazing and are very talented people. Armor and weapons also look very memorable and fancy. When it comes to visual and art choices, this game is extremely good and memorable. And to be honest with you, I am kinda sad that Baldur's Gate 3 won a reward for the best visual. And dear Baldur's Gate fans, I'm not trying to offend you, but for what visual your game won? For what visual? Lords 100% deserved a reward for the best visual and art direction. Speaking of weapons, there is one very cool thing that I liked about them. In this game you can take two different weapons, for example halberd and sword, and power stance both of them. I knew about that only when I fought Judge Cleric, and oh my god, how much time it would save me if I knew about that earlier. This tactic is very effective and fun. Also, this game is very flexible when it comes to weapon builds. Yes, some weapons are a bit better and opposite of that, but in this game you can take pretty much every type of weapon and it will be useful. The thing I liked most in this game is that for example you have a poison halberd, and in From Software games you can't enchant it with for example fire or bleed, and even if you do, one of these enchantments will be reduced or will be straight up removed. But in Lords of the Fallen you can combine enchantments. For example against Monarch, I had this weapon and I used the bleed enchantment and he was both bleeding and poisoned, and that was a very cool and fun thing. Also in this game ranged weapons such as crossbows or bows are very useful. I remember fighting this poison dude, and in order to not get poisoned I just shoot him with fire crossbow over and over. And also in a boss fight you can combine both melee range attacks and range attacks. For example you can start a fight with crossbow and ignite boss with 3 or 4 hits, and after that use poison and bleed or holy enchantment and just whoop the shit from bosses. This strategy was very effective for example against female gods and budget Lothric. Camera angle and boss fights ultimate moves. It's not a secret that in Souls-like games camera is your number one enemy, because if you fight a big boy or if a boss decides to use his ultimate move, all you will see is a boss, ass or a wall, and half of the time you will receive a punch. But in Lords of the Fallen, when big boss does a big slam move, camera zooms out and you can clearly see boss move, which is a very good thing, and I will be very grateful if FromSoft will do the same thing, because I am a bit done looking at huge boss small ass. Speaking of ultimate moves, I think that this game did a very good job with the oh you are dead now moves. Okay, so in a fight against Pieta, Judge Cleric or Monarch, when bosses did their outplay buttons, you could clearly see them and they gave you enough time to dodge them. If you got hit by that, this means that you were greedy and you deserved it. And unlike Elden Ring, which not only gave you almost no time to dodge these outplay buttons, but also these moves could full HP one-shot you. While in Lords of the Fallen, yeah, it does a big amount of damage, but it won't one-shot you unless you were butt naked and with low amount of health. Also, this one will be a bit personal and I think that many of you won't agree with me, but I really like the idea of Umbra and how you use a lamp. For example, in locations, many times in order to go further, you have to use a lamp or be in Umbra in order to, for example, move bridges, see road and open this eye. And I know many people don't like it, but it was a very interesting thing to do. And also, unlike for example God of War 5, you are not really spending much time on it. I will be honest with you, I'm a bit bad at stuff like there is a closed path, find a specific thing to open this gate. But in this game, I never had any problem because they are very obvious, and also there is a blue line, which tells you where you have to go. Also about the lamp. I know many people call it useless in a boss fight, but I kinda liked how you can use it in a boss fight. For example, against Horse Rider, Crow and Face Golem. And yes, lamp besides these three bosses is not really necessary, but it gives you a small advantage, such as allowing you to hit their soul, and if you have a strong weapon, realistically in late game it gives you a free 1 or 1.5k free damage, which is pretty nice. Debatable things. Okay, so I know this one will be very strange, but I want to talk about things that are not bad or good and are kinda debatable situations. Okay, so remember how I said that I like the weapon variety in this game? Yes, but there are a few not that obvious moments about that. First of all, in my opinion, all enchantments, besides poison and holy, and maybe bleed, are completely jokes in a boss fight. Like many bosses have a huge fire resist or are immune to it. Freeze doesn't work on bosses, and even if it works, it takes eternity to stack. Or it works and I just couldn't see it. Wither is a trash can against bosses. Smite is what exactly? I tried it a few times and it didn't really work well and many more. Secondly, Lisa line. Oh my god, the amount of words I want to say to the person who thought that this was a good idea. The only thing I can wish to him is this. Enjoy. This one maybe sounds out of nowhere, but am I the only one who thinks that dodges in this game when you lock camera are worse than when you just roll without locking camera on enemy? Not sure if any of you had the problems like me, but still. In this game there were a lot of moments where I tried to lock my camera in order to move a bridge, and sometimes my character just refused to lock on a bridge. It locked on a random dude far away from it. Also, remember how I said that I used crossbow a lot? Yeah, in late game I realized one very funny thing. In late game I had my crossbow at +7 and it did almost 600 damage to both bosses and enemies, and after a while in my inventory I found a hammer which did 800 damage. My jaw dropped when I saw that if I fully charge it and if I hit enemy in head, it does almost 1.2k damage, and after researching a bit I almost fell off my chair when I saw a clip of a dude who with more powerful hammers did nearly 2k damage with his hammers. With my full combo with 2 + 10 weapons I did a ±2k damage, and there is a dude who just throws a consumable hammer and does almost 2k damage, only if he hits them in head, but still. And holy shit, I unironically say that the strongest weapon in this game are consumables. Story and lore. I will be honest with you, I couldn't understand a single thing about it. Yeah, it's probably because I didn't play the first Lords of the Fallen. Yes, if something new, this game is a sequel. In this game, a random boss that you will fight is a main character of a previous game. So I can talk about its story and lore just because I'm not not sure what to say about it. Farm. Many people say that in this game you are forced to farm over and over or you will get wrecked, and no, I never even once needed to farm something. I just kept moving forward and that's it. Sometimes I got wrecked by mobs and bosses, but I never on purpose started to grind and farm souls because I always was good level and I always had a reasonable amount of damage and I always was reasonably tanky. So yeah, many people very exaggerate when they say that in this game you are forced to farm. The only time you are forced to farm is to get a Pilgrim's Cave for nearly 2k souls, and first of all it's optional, and secondly you expected to find easy loot and easy mobs behind a door that can be opened only with a very expensive key. Really? Starting classes. In this game we have a lot of starting classes, and also depending on your ending, you will get a new starting class. For example, I got this character, but in my opinion every single starting class just sucks compared to Dark Crusader. Not only he has a very strong armor, but also he has a very strong starting weapon, which allows you to poise break enemies and bosses very easy, and also it allows you to hit multiple enemies at once. So if you are new at this game, start with Crusader and you will dominate all mobs in early game. Now about negative moments in this game. First of all, bosses. No, in this game, without a doubt, there are a few interesting and good bosses that I liked, but there is a huge problem about them. Just like in Elden Ring, they repeat themselves over and over, and sometimes they became a basic mobs in the next fucking location. For example, I killed this guy, and I almost fell off my chair when I saw that this same guy will face me, but now as a basic mob. Holy fuck, I couldn't stop laugh, and there are just way too many bosses that will be basic mobs in the next location or later in this game. In this game there are 35 boss fights according to wiki, and do you know how many of them are unique bosses or won't be basic mobs in the next location? 10 of them. Just wow. And from 10 of them, only 4 or 5 of them are interesting to fight, and 2 of them are a boss fights full of basic mobs that you hit over and over. For example, let's take Crow. Despite it being a gank boss fight from basic mobs, I kinda like the idea of this boss fight. Crow is a background mage, which sometimes throws at you magic and winter, which forces you to be in the middle of this arena, while the one you should hit is in Umbra and is guarded by mobs. Yeah, many of you won't like this boss fight, but it was a pretty interesting yet annoying boss fight. But when a fucking final boss is literally a Diacons of the Deep, but even dumber and without the main deacon, it just... Oh, I don't even want to say anything about that. So, despite this game having a bunch of cool boss fights and interesting ideas, the fact that there are only 10 unique bosses and more than half of bosses are a fucking basic mobs or will repeat themselves over and over ruined boss quality for me really hard. Speaking of reusing bosses, this game reuses the same mobs over and over, and because of that I thought that this game has a very small amount of unique mobs. What I mean by that, well, for example Dark Souls 1. In Anor Londo there are Silver Knights and that's it. You won't find them outside Anor Londo. But in Lords of the Fallen, I found the same mobs over and over. And in the end I was like, oh, again Snake Rocket Launcher, oh, again Doodle Shields, oh, again Naked Dudes, oh, again Twigs Dudes, oh, again this Doodle Fire Minigun, and many more. No, really, the only location that I can remember that didn't reuse their mobs outside their locations were Dude in Poison Village. Others repeated themselves over and over. And also in this game there are just way too many gang moments. When you die for the first time you revive in Umbra, and the mobs in both Umbra and in a living world will hunt you down, and oh my god, how many times I raged because I had to fight against 10 enemies at the same time. Also about mobs in Umbra, all game there will be only some faceless mobs, a fly lady, budget shadow of Yarnam, and some dogs which just sucks. Like, while they reused their mobs over and over, which I remind you can spawn until you die or until you left Umbra. Especially my big thanks for Red Nazgul, who blocks your Estus and even in late game is unironically harder than almost all bosses in this game. Locations. Okay, so you are probably very confused, but let me explain. Locations in this game look cool and are memorable, but only in Umbra. If we don't count Umbra, let's see what this game can offer us. Village, Poison Village, Burning Village, Snow Village, 2 or 3 underground locations, and that's it. No, maybe I'm exaggerating, but the only location that I can remember after playing this game is a fifth of the Chill Curse and the Mess of the Hollowed Brothers. Others are either unmemorable or are just another village with some specifics. Also, talking about locations, many people can agree with me that in this game finding a right path is sometimes almost impossible. Like, how many of you even found about the feed of the Chill Curse? Or how many of you even found Brimey's Castle? It's almost impossible because you have to go in a location that you already explored, and you probably won't remember about the fact that somewhere there was a closed door which you can open. The situational NPC quest is no better. I saw a few character quests on YouTube and holy shit, I won't believe that there is even a single person who did at least one of these quests without YouTube tutorials. Holy fuck, the quest of Pieta and the secret final boss is just a fucking circus. Watch YouTube guides about what you have to do in order to unlock the secret final boss of this game. Which by the way is literally a Pieta with passive cologne. Just wow. Also this game was very bugged, well at least on PC. I was a bit lucky and had bugs only once. Yeah, it's not close to Jedi Fallen Order or Kingdom Come Delivery or Last of Us Part 1 on PC, but still. Well, at least developers removed and fixed all of their bugs very quickly and didn't say dumb stuff such as get a better PC lol, for which I am very grateful. Okay, what can I say about this game? Well, Lords of the Fallen is just an average game, no matter how you look at it. I liked it, but this game is just play it once, have fun, rage a bit and forget about it, unless you want to replay it after a very long time. But in my opinion, this game is the best game to start as Souls-like games. Just start with a Crusader, max health, strength and durability, get some strong weapons on plus 10 and you are good to go. This game has a cool special effects and a few memorable bosses which will be challenging for new players, but for the people who are a bit skilled in Souls-like games, well, in my opinion the only hard bosses in this game will be Light Reaper, Pieta, Judge, Cleric and maybe Giant, because of his dumb and oh my fucking god hitboxes. Also this game has a low combat speed, which is not bad at all, but for a new players a slow combat speed is better in order to understand Souls-like games, unlike Lies of P, on which I will talk about one day. With this I will say bye bye to you and I will see you next time. While watching many reviews about this game, there were a lot of people who said that this game is just an insult towards From Software and that this game is just a cheap parody of Dark Souls, and I just can't stop laughing with this. First of all these people who praise Lies of P, how to say it properly? What is Lies of P other than literally every single From Software game combined? Like no shit that this game is good, it's just word by word, mob by mob, boss by boss and location by location copied every single From Software game. I will talk about this in my next video about Lies of P, but now let's talk about Elden Ring. Not sure if you realize that, but Lords of the Fallen is literally Elden Ring, but with slow combat and the worst story. Because come on, it's not hard to fuck up your story when you are just copying Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2. Lords of the Fallen and Elden Ring has identical problems. Repetitive bosses, repetitive mobs that are in a location in which they shouldn't be. Mobs became bosses or bosses became basic mobs over and over. The very first boss is a fucking basic mob. In Elden Ring we had Frost and Bleed as most OP damage source. In Lords of the Fallen instead we have Holy and Poison. And many more. So please stop screaming that Lords are failure and disappointment while screaming that Elden Ring is a flawless masterpiece.